Jane Emmanuel knew the truth about having kids while living with HIV.
I used to teach people, in fact, that you can be a mother, you can have a kid, though you're HIV positive, but you can have a kid who is HIV negative.
But then, in 2021, Jane Emmanuel knew the truth about having kids while
the COVID-19 pandemic in Arusha, Tanzania, Jane discovered that she herself was pregnant. She'd been so confident telling others they could have an HIV-free child. But now she found herself wondering,
is it really possible, like the way I'm telling them? Though I was teaching them, believing it by myself, it was a little bit tough.
Hello and welcome to Beyond, a podcast from the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation. I'm your host, Eric Bond. On today's episode, Jane Emmanuel, a mother on a mission. Join me.
You can understand Jane's anxiety. Her mother had unknowingly passed HIV to her during childbirth or breastfeeding, and here Jane was unexpectedly pregnant.
I thought, what kind of baby am I going to bring in this world? What about the health status of that baby that is coming? Or what should I do to start preventing her from getting HIV?
I first met Jane at a teen club, a support group for adolescents living with HIV, at St. Elizabeth's Hospital. It was March 2020 and we were watching COVID-19 spread across the globe. I caught one of the last flights out of the country before things shut down. But before I left, I learned a lot about Jane. She was born into a Maasai family. The Maasai are traditionally pastoralists who move about with their livestock in northern Tanzania and southern Kenya. But Jane grew up in Arusha, a multicultural hub with a view of Mount Meru. Her father bred goats and cows. At some point before she was born, both of Jane's parents acquired HIV. Jane's mother unknowingly transmitted it to Jane. There was no effective HIV treatment in Arusha at that time. Jane's father died of HIV-related causes when Jane was 6 months old. One of Jane's uncles then came to the house.
He told my mom that you people are living with HIV. So the only thing we can do for you guys is to dig a grave for you. So he went further. He even digged a hole and said that he'll put the both of us there. I mean, me and my mom. I don't want anybody else to go through that. He's now dead, by the way, so let him continue resting in peace.
Jane's mother, Joyce, decided that she and her daughter were not ready for the grave. Joyce set up a business selling produce and charcoal along the side of the road to keep them fed and housed. Both battled HIV-related illnesses, but they hung on until 2007 when antiretroviral medication became available to them. Jane was 8. Joyce did not tell Jane about her HIV status. Instead, she told her that the medicine she took every day was to keep her from getting headaches. 1 year after Jane started antiretroviral medication, Joyce scraped together school fees and sent her daughter to boarding school so that she could grow up to be educated and independent. Jane was a stellar student and made friends easily. Then one day, Jane was leafing through her science textbook.
I just came up with a certain topic in my science book. Surprisingly, I just saw the medication that I was using in that picture. So I went through the computer and started to Google it. What is it for? Then I realized
that her headache medication was actually antiretroviral medication and that she is living with HIV. Jane went to her dorm supervisor with questions. It did not go well.
So the moment that my supervisor just knew that I was HIV positive, she really stigmatized me, because she didn't even want anyone to be in my part. She even came to my room, talked to my roommates, that this person is living with HIV, don't do whatever with her. Even the group discussions, don't make with her.
But Jane's mother was there for her.
I came to talk with my mom. She just told me the reality, that it's real, that you are living with HIV, and you have just to live as how you are, because there's no way that we can change it.
Jane says that her mother is her mentor, provides a model for her.
You know, she's always strong. So I learned love. I learned how to be strong. And I also learned how to care for others.
And Jane's nurse urged her to join the teen club at St. Elizabeth's, This is the support group for adolescents living with HIV. Jane credits the support group with providing her with a haven from stigma, a place of solidarity, a supportive family. Jane brought the strength and love that she learned from her mother and passed it to others in the group. Soon she was selected to be a peer educator. In that role, Jane would check in on other members of the group to make sure that they were taking their medications. She would counsel them and help them find solutions.
So we're trying to get very close to young people so as we can help them, as I said, just to change their life to be a positive life. That HIV doesn't mean that it's end of life.
On the day of my visit back in 2020, the group was engaged in a micro-enterprise program that Jane had helped initiate. Some members of the group lived far from St. Elizabeth's and didn't have money for transportation and health services. The group was raising funds by selling radios, flash discs, and T-shirts. The front of the T-shirt has the letters LWT.
So LWT means let's work together, let's do something together to form a better success. At the back of it, it has my mom is a hero. I think to myself, my mom is a hero, yes.
I stayed in touch with Jane during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. She told me about how she was continuing to be a peer educator, using WhatsApp to check in on the other members of the teen club. Jane felt fulfilled in her outreach and counseling work with her peers, whom she considered her sisters and brothers. But then her life was disrupted by an old family member. An uncle had arranged a marriage for Jane without consulting with her or her mother.
And he was somebody who I never knew before. So you cannot just choose somebody for me who is older than me and you tell me that I have to live with that person. It's impossible. I didn't want such kind of life. It doesn't matter whether he's wealthy or not. What I wanted is to live a life that I'm happy with it. So my mom told me, no, you can't do this. You have to move out from Arusha and go somewhere else. So she told me I have to go to Dar es Salaam.
Dar, the big city. While she was in hiding, Jane and her mother negotiated with her father's family. Jane asked her grandmother to intervene, and she succeeded in canceling the marriage, so she could finally return to Arusha. And that's where she fell in love with a boy named Chris. And then her life changed again. 1 month, Jane noticed that she missed her period. Then she missed it for a second month. So she went to a health facility and took a test, and her suspicion was confirmed. She was pregnant. First she told her mother, and then she told Chris.
It was an awkward conversation because that day we had a little fight. And between the fight, I decided to let him know. So I just sent a text, decide whatever you want to decide, but just know that I'm pregnant. So he decided to call and he was like, what awkward way do you have to tell me this? And I was like, there was no any other way that you had to know about it. So he asked about how long is it? And I told him that it's 3 months. And it was like, why didn't you tell me early?
Jane told Chris that she had just learned the news herself.
Yeah, he accepted about it because he wanted also to be a father. Very excited.
Jane was also excited, but she began to worry about whether she could keep this child HIV-free. Intellectually, she knew it was possible. She'd counseled others about this after all. Here are the facts. Without antiretroviral intervention, a mother living with HIV has a 20% chance of transmitting the virus to her baby during pregnancy and then a 40% chance of transmitting it during breastfeeding. But Jane was taking antiretroviral medications. Still, she was anxious.
So I went to the facility at my St. Elizabeth Hospital, talked to my nurse. She spoke with me, counseled me that it's okay. You have just to follow the rules. You have to use your medications on time to prevent the baby from getting HIV. So I said, okay, I'll do anything they have to say in order to protect her. And every day, when I was pregnant, I loved to go to the clinic. It was every day. I wasn't waiting until the day reached that I'm supposed to go. Every day I was there. And the aim was to learn about how to keep that baby healthy inside my stomach. And when I deliver her, how should I keep her healthy?
There is no way to test a baby before she is born, so Jane just needed to wait and find out later. Months, weeks, and then the day arrived. Suddenly, Jane faced a new challenge. At the hospital, she was greeted by a nurse she didn't know, and that nurse was going to deliver her baby. When Jane told her that she's living with HIV, the nurse froze up.
She told me, I have never delivered a person who is HIV positive, so I don't know how will I manage your situation today. She even started asking me, will I be safe? She thought of it, to the extent that I said, do I have to shift from this facility and go to another facility?
Thankfully, at that point, her main nurse arrived and took over, a nurse who knew Jane and knew what to do. Labor went smoothly, and soon Jane was holding a healthy baby girl. She and Chris had already chosen a name, Odessa.
First of all, it's a unique name. You don't find it everywhere, and the meaning of it was what made me happy. That it means strength.
But getting through childbirth was just the start. Jane had more to do to ensure Odessa remained HIV-free. Jane was told to exclusively breastfeed her baby, so she needed to make sure that her viral load remained undetectable. She brought Odessa to all of her clinic appointments and made sure that she was periodically checked for HIV with a dried blood spot test, also known as a DBS test. The clinician would take a small blood sample from Odessa's foot and put it on a card to dry. That card was then sent away to the lab where the blood was tested for HIV.
I remember the first test, the first DBS test. That day I was trembling. Even the nurses told me, you have to relax because things don't go the way you're thinking.
It took days for the results to come back. Jane could barely concentrate on anything else.
When the results came back, I can't explain that day. I was very happy. I was really happy to hear that, yes, I managed it. Yes, I did it. The kid is safe. I remember that day I even cried because I didn't expect that.
But to declare Odessa HIV-free, she would need 2 more tests, with the last one at 18 months.
So even the second test, she was fine. Even the last test, because we had 3 tests, all the tests, she was fine.
Odessa was officially HIV-free.
Even my mom, she couldn't believe about that. I remember her crying the whole week, just telling me it's just happiness, tears.
She must be happy that her granddaughter is not going to have to go through the turmoil that you went through.
Yeah, she's very happy with that. Sometimes she can't even imagine. Sometimes she tells me, I can't even think of it like at night. And I say, no, is it real or do I have to get someone to punch me and tell me that this is not a dream? So she's very excited for that.
Jane had broken the HIV chain.
And then I came to realize that if you decide to focus on something and if you decide to change something, yes, you can, because it comes from within you.
Jane had managed to keep her child safe, but a different tragedy was about to strike. Chris had been there for Jane at different points during pregnancy, but their relationship was off and on. His family did not like Jane because of her openness about her HIV status and because of her work in the community. The two loved each other, but the relationship was rocky. Then on New Year's Day, Chris was in a motorbike accident.
And I had to stay with him in the hospital until 9th of January. He passed away. It's okay. It happened. I'm trying to move on from that. I'm trying just to accept everything. I remember I told myself that, hey, this isn't the end, it's just the starting point. So you have to think about what's next. Because right now it's done. You can't change anything. And the only thing I have right now that is my big happiness is the kid. She's there and I have to be there for her.
So the last time I saw you, you didn't have a daughter. How has your life changed by having a baby?
You can say that Jane has changed in everything, in fact. Because the last 3 years, It's not something small, it's something a little bit big. I've learned a lot of things, faced a lot of things that's changed me completely. So the last Jane is quite different.
And yet Jane keeps in touch with her family of choice at the teen club. When she gets a chance, she brings Odessa to meet her uncles and aunts.
I remember the first time I took Odessa, every kid was surprised, and they were very, very happy that day. And she was very little, very young, but now she's grown up. So until today, if they just misses me, even if it's not the club days, they just call me. Today we are at the certain place. We need you and Odessa in the club.
Jane lives with her mother and continues to work at St. Elizabeth's, helping the nurses. In fact, Jane is heading up a new initiative going into the streets and into the communities to talk to young people, especially girls, getting them tested for HIV. Now Jane gets her strength from both her mother and her daughter.
She's a fantastic kid. I can say she's clever. Sometimes she notices when I'm not okay, and she'll just come and tell me, "What are you thinking?" And I just tell her nothing, and she'll tell me, "Let's go and dance." She'll tell me, "Play the music, we dance." So I just play the music and we start dancing, and I forget everything. Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to Beyond, a podcast from the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation. Find out more about Jane at petaids.org. And make sure to subscribe to Beyond on your favorite podcast app to never miss an episode. Many thanks to associate producer Madeline Morris. We had editing help from Dan Bobkoff from Rhyme Media. I'm Eric Bond. Join me next week for a conversation with Elena, a young activist in Malawi fighting for representation and for equity and for an HIV cure.
I think with treatment, we all know that it's not permanent. I'm passionate about a cure because I don't have to take drugs anymore.